we have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft.
Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion, over.
Move very rapidly at any speed or whether any direction it wanted to go. Flag could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Good evening, everybody. This is another live edition of Anomaly Now from Austin, Texas. I'm Smiles Lewis and my co-host,
Mark Jackson.
Yeah, all right.
Good evening, everybody.
Never done that to you, but I had to throw that one at you. How you doing?
Good, Miles. Good. Thanks. Again, just thanks for a great week of stories up on Flipboard. Folks, you just got to go. It's the place with all the back end work done. We'll be talking about a lot of it today, but another great week of news, Miles. Thanks.
Sure. It's a long URL, so if you want to check that out, you can go to the Anomaly-Archives.org website. We are a 501c3 nonprofit here in Austin, Texas, dedicated to the preservation of anomalous literature, research, et cetera, and the education of the public about that material. And over there on the Anomaly-Archives.org website, you can find in the sidebar an RSS feed displaying all the latest 20 or so from the 6,000 plus articles that are linked over on the Flipboard website. And we're in this next 30 minutes going to share a few of those with you in the brief time that we have. And first, I just wanted to also say, I've been talking this is our third episode. This has been an amazing September of online virtual UFO paranormal related conferences. We've alluded to several over the last two episodes. And this past weekend, I got to experience yet another one that was just fantastic. 2 weekends ago was PhenomenaCon 2 put on by Greg and Dana Newkirk of the, I forget the name of their Traveling Museum of Occult Artifacts, whatever. They've created a great community and did a great conference with PhenomenaCon 2. And then this past weekend, my friend Adam Sane and his co-host Sir Phil, I first met Adam back in Roswell in 2017 for the big anniversary there. I think 70th or 75th, I forget. In fact, 1947 forward, several decades. And I met them, and full disclosure, ever since, I've been carrying them on my Anomaly Radio web stream, which actually I need to get this set up so that we're streaming the audio live to that too. But unaffiliated with the Anomaly Archives, Anomaly Radio is just a personal hobby of mine that I've been doing since last century, literally 24/7, 365. Anyway, Adam's got a show called he's got a podcast called Conspiranormal. And last year they did in Nashville, Tennessee, Strange Realities Uno, the very first Strange Realities conference there in person. Resounding success, everybody thought. And this year they were going to do it again. But guess what? They had to resort to the virtual route, and they did a great job. It was a fantastic alternate realities experience, and there were just so many great speakers. I do just want to commend them for their work here with this, and you should be seeing here, you can go to strangerealitiesconference.com and see more about the event there. Great speakers. Brent Rains has been at this forever. He publishes a thing called Alternate Perceptions, very great online paranormal news, and does audio interviews. I've known him for years, since the 90s. Did a great presentation. One of my favorite podcasters, Aaron Goulias, who does Saucer Life podcast. He's a academic, a teacher, has published a number of books on conspiracy theories and the paranormal and UFOs. Saucer Life is a great, very concise little history packets. John Tenney actually closed out PhenomenaCon 2 and also gave a presentation at Alternate Realities Conference 2. Did a great job. He's just a warm-hearted person and a great speaker. David Metcalf is a fantastic researcher and did a fantastic presentation on kind of like down-home magic that you can find. There's so many magic-oriented, occult-oriented books in gas stations across this country, and his was kind of like a travelogue on that. And oh yes, the bishop himself, Alan Greenfield, who has been resurrected from obscurity through the Hellier series that was put on by the PhenomenaCon folks, the Newkirks. On and on and on. Good friend Stephanie Quick talking about synchronicities. It was her first ever presentation. Miguel Romero, aka Red Pill Junkie RPJ. Many of you know him from his online comments where he started before he became his own commentator, and a phenomenal artist, does great artwork. He did his first presentation on the UMO UFO case from Spain. Fantastic job. He just knocked it out of the park for a first presentation. Good old friend Tim Banal of America, Guy Malone, another longtime UFO researcher from Roswell, Timothy Renner, who's the co-author of a book with another speaker that we'll see, Kiki Dombrowski, did a great job. My great friend Greg Bishop did a phenomenal job with his presentation, and Jenny Ashford talked about true crime cases, was great. Stephen Snyder, aka Recluse. If you are interested in paranormal oriented aspects of parapolitical deep state conspiracies, this is the guy. Recluse has a phenomenal website that I can't recommend enough, and his presentation, he basically just read it with a piles and piles of books behind him, and apparently they were taking money to get him some bookshelves. Jack Montgomery also talked about folk magic. And my good friend Joshua Cutchin was, as always, talking about the convergence of all these strange phenomena, whether it be Bigfoot, fairy lore, alien abduction, UFO stuff. The Reverend Michael J.S. Carter presented on his experiences and perspectives. Another conspiratorial presentation by Michael Bennett, Dr. Future, and Tony Kale, and Ren Collier did a great one. Sarai Azkath, another popular podcaster. Anyway, great jobs, guys. I really just was really impressed with what they did, and I just want to commend Adam and Sir Phil for the great job that they did with their Strange Realities conference. So I've already eaten up 8 minutes with that.
Yeah, Miles, really quick. That Recluse guys really piqued my attention. Is there a link somewhere that we can find his website, or do you want to drop it real quick?
Let's see. I don't remember it off the top of my head. It's one I've been reading for years.
Yeah, maybe we'll try to put something up on the website. Yeah,
I can put it up in the show notes when I finally do that for this episode. But yeah, great job, Conspiranormal folks. And it really signals a new era. As much as everybody was lamenting, not being able to be in person, there was a Zoom after party Saturday and Sunday nights for their event, and it was fantastic. I really, the attendees got to mingle with the speakers in the way that they often would in person. It was like the after hours bar party. So good job. Good. Well, we've got some news articles as usual, and you brought to my attention one that I had posted but hadn't gotten around to reading yet, which was the thing about. Where is that? Yeah, strange research paper claims there's a black hole at the center of the Earth. What? Where have I heard that before?
What? There was a couple of books you sent over my way that deal with the subject. I appreciate those links. I was unaware of the books. Miles, I got to say, this particular story, I don't know if you're going to pull it up there on the screen, but
I am. Yeah. So we've got the link is to what is it? Futurism.com, and where is that? I have hardly any tabs open. There we go. And it's from futurism.com. This is from just a couple of days ago, by author John Christian. Wow. Yeah. So what did you find out about this?
So this story was really hard to unpack. I got to be honest with you. And for the sake of brevity, I'm going to skip through quite a bit of this. So as it turns out, this particular, the guy at Futurism here, or gal, let's see, who was it? Oh no, John. So it was a guy. When he looked into the story, he came up with the conclusion after interviewing someone from, a mathematician from, what university was it? But anyway, he was looking to cross-reference this story with some other folks, and they think that this is an article that was submitted to what's commonly referred to as predatory journals. Okay, predatory journals are people that just want to get the fees for people submitting the paper, and they're not peer-reviewed at all. They're not cross-referenced, citations are loose, all that sort of thing. And so the futurism take on this story was it was like a nothing burger, right? That there's no black hole at the middle of the Earth, etc. And thought that this was just an attempt based on the lead researcher's previous papers that he had put out spoof, science to a number of different journals in a sort of gotcha efforts, to say, hey, you guys aren't real journals, you're just ripping people off for money, etc. Okay, but upon taking a closer look at this, it turns out there's some actual science behind this. So the name of the actual paper that was put out is "A Black Hole at the Center of Earth Plays the Role of the Biggest System of Telecommunications for Connecting DNA, Dark DNAs, and Molecules of Water on a 4+N dimensional manifold."
What?
Yeah, say that twice. So here's how it goes. The more I dug into this, there's nothing to do with the middle of the Earth. However, when you unpack the title of this particular research paper, there's actually quite a bit of science in it. And ironically, this will go back to what we were talking about last week with the electro-optical, or in this case, electromagnetic sensors. So very quickly, it turns out that DNA, okay, and dark DNA, by the way, in the title, refers to something where they sequence DNA, and there's particular important segments of the DNA that are missing. However, the biological life still performs the functions as if the DNA was there. Okay, that's where that fourth dimensional piece, I think, starts to come in, is they're saying dark DNA, in other words, missing, or we can't measure it. However, the signature or the function of that DNA still persists in the biological life form. That's why they call it dark, like dark matter. We can't measure it, so it's dark DNA. Anyway, that's what that's all about. Really, really, really interesting stuff there. But let's boil this down real quick. Basically, what they're saying is the root science to all this is that DNA gives off what's known as biophotonics. This is a really cool. So when the electrons and atoms, they interact with each other. That's what we call at the quantum level, essentially. At this quantum level, when DNA forms, it gives off biophotonics, or in other words, very low frequency electromagnetic signatures, which is just really cool, because now they're thinking that they can trace certain viruses and bacterial infections by this very low frequency photonic or electromagnetic, essentially a wave that DNA gives off. So as the DNA sequence is structured, it'll give off a very specific electromagnetic signature. So it has all kinds of upside in the medical field. Now, just to close this off, because I'm just basically introducing concepts here for everybody. In Gerald Pollack's book, he brought up about the fourth phase of water, which is extremely incredible. By the way, you guys, I'm giving it to the archives. Go down there. You can rent it out for miles. Great book. Gerald Pollack.
One of your favorite books, I know.
Yeah, it's structured water. So basically, he talks about a study in there by a gentleman, actually a Nobel laureate by the name of Luc Montagnier. And what he did a few years ago is he took two flasks, one right next to each other, one here and one there. They're sealed off from each other. There's some distance between them. And he has a DNA sequence in one, and then he just let UV light, or what we call incidental light, bombard both of these flasks. Okay, so then what he did, he takes the one that has, the control one is just nothing but pure water. It's sealed off. The one right next to it, that one's got a DNA sequence. It's got DNA in it. Okay, so what happens here is he takes the one that was right next to the DNA, the blank, or your control group, He takes that flask and then he pours in the precursors to DNA. So it's just jumbled up nitrogen bases, phosphates, sugars, just the precursors to DNA essentially. Voila, he puts it into the presence of incidental light, right, or electromagnetic light. And then they test the sequence and they found DNA in there. So basically, they're positing, okay, that DNA gives off a wave that has its information intact, and then that information can transfer to other water. The water here is the key because water is the medium that stores the information. So when they put the jumbled DNA precursors into the blank or just the fresh water, they went back and they tested it, and sure enough, that water had created the exact same DNA sequence as was into the DNA of the group next to it. So this is we can just stop right there, but I'm introducing you guys to some very cool concepts right there. So basically, we're talking about information traveling as photons or electromagnetic energy, and then water having this really unique ability to store that information and use as a medium for recombining that information. That's the best I could take away.
You know, this is something I try to talk to skeptics about all the time when they start, poo-pooing ESP, and there can't be there's no mechanism for any of this. And it's like, dude, have y'all ever read, I remember there used to be Frontier Sciences, I think was the name of the journal. It was published through, I think, Temple University. I'm probably getting this all. It's been so many years and it doesn't exist anymore. But there were always articles about new discoveries about how organs and parts of the body communicate with different wavelengths than anybody ever thought. There's chemical communication, electrical communication, and light, photonic communication. And all these things can carry information and can be part of an ecology and can help create order. Fascinating. So many ways so many jumping off points for there. So there's this big article over on the Drive. Now the Drive is correct me if I'm wrong, but the Drive is more of a traditionally aviation, military, hardware, technology related blog. They've done a lot of articles covering the TTSA, Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy, and the information about the ATIP, OSAP, the Pentagon's UFO program. But and so there's often a lot of interesting articles there. This article does not purport to be about any of that. Blasting the air in front of hypersonic vehicles with lasers could unlock unprecedented speeds, and it talks about this decades-long effort by the Department of Defense to reduce drag and create sheathing through directed energy induced plasmas and just wild stuff. This is by Brett Tingley. Ooh, Brett's got me all tingly over at the Drive in the war zone. Now there's some great illustrations here, including this one over here on the left. Doesn't that look like that's a flying saucer, man? But what caught my attention as soon as I saw this, before I'd even read it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This has direct relevance to, let me hold this up for a second here. We hope to sometime soon have an interview and a presentation by Christian Lambright, who is the author of this Kindle-only book, X Descending, which the subtitle is Two Extraordinary Films Reveal the Lies, Deception, and Truth About Unidentified Flying Objects. Well, that's kind of innocuous, but basically what it has to do with is former Austin UFO researcher Ray Stanford and his PSI, Project Starlight International Organization, which is one of the best instrumented civilian UFO research efforts ever, while the other half the time he was channeling stuff, so science, spirit, whatever. But he has always had this ability to get amazing UFO photographs, and for a long time he talked about, mostly to just friends, he's never publicized, he's never shared these publicly, but he had film footage that he shot in Corpus Christi of 7 disc objects flying, not like a disc you think of, but flying on edge like that. Ooh. And Chris Lambright in looking at the film, seeing it firsthand, and then doing his own image analysis, saw a line in front of it. And so, long story short, this article here, oh, dang it. Let me see if I can find the person in here. So it goes into depth about this technology and the research and the military. And I hope you're not hearing all those beeping. So, but the most important part of this here is Leak Mirabeau. Leikmyrabo, Leak Mirabeau, pioneer of laser light craft propulsion concept. So Leak Mirabeau, back in, I think it was about 1997, I remember seeing the article that was what was called the air spike. And it was this concept of using, supercharging the atmosphere in front of an aircraft with a laser, directed energy, and in order to reduce the drag as the object moved forward. And sure enough, when he published his stuff in 1997, it had this image of what looked like a craft on its side and a beam coming out. Well, guess what? He's seen Ray Stanford's film before he published that research. Now, he was researching this kind of stuff long before that, but this article does not mention UFOs. It doesn't mention any of this. This author is probably completely unaware, but maybe not, of Christian Lambright's book. But Chris does some good background in just kind of talking about the fact that here is a case where, you know, scientists always say that there's nothing to learn about UFO by studying UFOs. Well, here may be a case where somebody who is researching this area and then saw some UFO evidence, and it helped ignite even further his thinking. And we may actually have evidence, film evidence, Ray Stanford apparently does, of this proof of concept well before anybody was publicly suggesting it, and probably before we were able to, at least through civilian contracts, to do it. Now, it's also highly unlikely, I think, that I think this footage was shot back in the 70s. I forget exactly, 1977 perhaps. But I highly recommend the article just for if you're interested in high technology. And you were reminding me, and this is mentioned in the article, about the connection to some of this in terms of plasma and reducing drag and increasing lift on, is it the bomber or the stealth bomber?
Yeah, the smaller one. What's the
name?
The
A-12, the fighter, then maybe.
Yeah. So, well, it's actually involved in. If you go to Tim Cook's book, The Hunt for Zero Point, he talks about this. He went to Lockheed Martin, and they were showing some schematics where basically they protonate the air in front of the vehicle, or the airframe, essentially, and that reduces drag, because the stealth bomber and the stealth fighter that we have, and I forget that I'm not a military junkie or anything, but those airframes technically can't fly without a reduction in their overall weight. And so they achieve the flight of that airframe supposedly through creating this plasma front in front of the vehicle where it's quote unquote falling forward as it flies. And again, that Cook's book, The Hunt for Zero Point, is the quintessential, like, if you want to get into it, that's a really big deal. Hey, really quick on this notion of discs orientating themselves like that. If it's not the Nimitz footage, because the Tic Tac incident, with Fravor and those guys actually didn't have any video footage. It was the other one that's always on TV. Mm-hmm. And remember when they say, "Hey, watch that thing's rotating," and it lifts itself, like this. Okay, I had an offline conversation with Deep Prasad. He's kind of a up and coming figure about this very topic, and we were talking about the orientation of the object in those videos. And I don't know if people know this, but the surface of the Earth is highly negatively charged, okay? And then the upper atmosphere, ionosphere, is highly positively charged. So if you're looking at a disk, okay, and then you orientate itself, basically you're negating the charges of the Earth in some sense. There's an orientation based on the charges of the Earth itself, which could be in play. Now, I'm not sure if that plays into this particular technology, but the idea of rotating 90 or, for that matter, in any sort of angular distribution in relation to Earth's charge could be something to consider in some of this. Anyway, throwing it out there. Cool.
So this next article that we've got in the last few moments here of the show, so most people, when they get to know me, they end up thinking of me, oh, you're that UFO guy, you're that paranormal guy, you're into, or in some cases, you're the conspiracy guy. But I'll never forget when one of my coworkers came up to me and said, hey, I hear you're really into dreams. And I was like, that's so refreshing, and I am. I often have credited my interest in these UFO related subjects to an early age fascination and ability to recall my dreams better than my similarly aged friends. And that also involved experiencing lucid dreaming, the ability or the experience of recognizing within the dream that you are dreaming and the possibilities that unlocks. And in fact, the nonprofit that we share the space with for the Anomaly Archives, INACS, INACS, Institute for Neuroscience and Consciousness Studies, our president on the board of directors, he used to do lucid dream research, sleep research here at the University of Texas in Austin. And so this is an area near and dear to my heart. Now, this article came out 5 days ago, but it's actually, I'd been seeing articles about this, and it's about the idea of helping people induce lucid dreaming through technology and techniques. And, there's been a lot of techniques, many mystical traditions, metaphysical and religious spiritual traditions have had techniques for people to try to induce lucid dreaming and also lucid waking in their day-to-day life. But this talks about this technology, which in this case is just pretty much off the shelf, practically, this little device that can sense aspects of your physiology that can indicate whether or not you're actually asleep and dreaming. And it uses the part of the time when you are just going into sleep, the hypnagogic part of when you're just falling to sleep. That's also a state that's prone to lucid dreams. And they've been using the technology and some techniques of waking people during as they're going into these phases to induce imagery in the dreams. Now, it's a fascinating case study. There's lots of research going on like this all the time. Highly recommend folks check this out. But it also reminds me of the fact that there's also, from a parapsychological perspective, there are a number of parapsychological experiments whereby they've used people outside, non-sleepers, non-dreamers, who try to induce imagery into the dreams of a sleeping target. It's kind of like the early ideas about remote viewing, the idea that you had to have a sender at the location to send the information back to the sensor, the remote viewer. Of course, they found that wasn't necessary at all. It does seem to work, but and there's been plenty of older experiments into that. But it just reminded me of that, and also just the ideas of the interestingness of these states and their interconnectedness between lucid dreaming, the hypnagogic, hypnopompic states, the phases going into and out of sleep. And some of the earliest research into lucid dream, proving that people were lucid in the dream state, where they would actually signal from the dream state to the people in the lab. I think Alan Worsley was the first person to do that. And then there's this other article that I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull it up right now, but yeah, sure I can. Sure I can.
That's very interesting, Miles.
My friend James sent me this from NPR. This is actually a few days or weeks ago. Scientists say a mind-bending rhythm in the brain can act like ketamine. Now, if ketamine is often described as a horse tranquilizer, it definitely has psychedelic and quote-unquote dissociative properties. But this article gets into something else I'd heard about, which is, you can also, there have been experiments inducing lucid dreaming through electrical stimulation of the brain. But this article is talking about similar electrical and or light stimulating of certain cells in certain parts of the brain that can induce this dissociative state that is akin to ketamine. So they may be able to actually create a ketamine-like state of consciousness in patients that would have all kinds of potential uses without the actual drug. And this is just a fascinating idea of, again, it gets to this idea of you can induce an altered state of consciousness through your breathing, through looking at pulsed light, through different sound frequencies, drumming. I mean, there's all these rhythms that can affect human brain and human perception and consciousness itself. And even here, right off the top, out-of-body experiences are all about rhythm. And it talks about inducing altered states or out-of-body experiences as a type of altered state of consciousness. Anyway, this is over at NPR. We'll have the links in the show notes for tonight's show. And that's probably just about all the time we have for tonight. So
there's so much to talk about. It's at some point we're going to need to have a long form.
Yes. So you and I have been talking about this for a long time, and we do. The Anomaly Archives does have a monthly virtual meetup where we try to have a presenter give a lecture about a variety of topics. We've had local Mayan experts, Barb McLeod, talk about shamanism and the Maya and state shamanism, a society that was ruled by their shamans. Not for the better in that case. And we've had our friends, Anita Excess and Victor Criterion, who launched this back in February. I just posted the video of their February lecture for last month's meetup. We try to do it on the second Saturday of the month. So keep an eye out at anomalyarchives.org. We also have a meetup. We have a Facebook group. We've got all the social media, so you can find us at all your favorite social media sites. And really just want to thank everybody for watching.
Happy lucid dreaming tonight, everybody.
Yeah, indeed. Good night.
Good night.